Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 28, Hippias Minor 376a to C, the end. Hippias has just agreed that justice is a form of ability and knowledge, and as such can do both fine things and base things. Because for Hippias, what is important is the ability itself and not the end. He and the many think that ability is good, justice is good, therefore justice is an ability, therefore justice is good for both good and bad ends. Socrates continues, Hotan arata aisra ergadzetai, hekusa ergadzetai dia dynamin kai technen, tautade dikaiosynes fainetai, eitoi amphotera, eito heteron, eoiken. So whenever it performs base things, it performs them willingly through ability and craft, techne. And these things appear to be of justice, whether both of them or one of the two. So it seems. Socrates has kept dynamis for ability, but he's changed episteme to techne for craft. Episteme, knowledge, is the theoretical side of techne, craft. Epitediuma would be the practical application of the knowledge. As we see here, episteme and techne can be used interchangeably. I should emphasize that we may object that justice isn't either ability or knowledge or techne, but that isn't the point. In this dialogue, Socrates suggests that justice is, and Hippias agrees. Really, he doesn't have much choice. This is an eristic debate. The many would think that Hippias was against justice if he said that it wasn't an ability or a knowledge of some sort. This is really the best chance Socrates has to make Hippias finally realize that ability in itself is neither good nor bad. Justice here is now being used for bad ends. This surely would make Hippias realize that something is wrong. Since Hippias doesn't seem to be making much progress, Socrates carries on, making it even more extreme. Kai to men ge adiken kakapoien estin tode me adiken kala, nai. And to do injustice is to produce bad things, and not to do injustice is to produce fine things. Yes, it's interesting that Socrates uses kala, fine things, and not agatha, good things, as the opposite of kaka, bad things. The opposite of kala, fine things, is aisra, base things, which Socrates has used previously. In the very little remaining of this dialogue, Socrates will use all of these adjectives, and it looks as though Socrates is saving agathos, good, for the climax. One common feature of eristics, which we have seen in this dialogue, is the excluded middle. Questions are asked with the form of two extreme options with no middle ground, and the rival is supposed to choose one of those options. This is an easy way to beat the rival. Another form of excluded middle is something we have just seen here. Even if we accept that to do injustice means to produce bad things, this doesn't mean that the opposite is not to do injustice, and it does not mean that not to do injustice means to produce fine things. Not to do injustice means just that, not doing injustice. To produce fine things would be to do justice. There's actually a lot of common ground, the excluded middle here, between not doing injustice and not doing justice. It's not that eristicians are getting away with this, they're actually exploiting the way the many think. The many exclude the middle. We see today that the many are now very extreme on both sides. It seems to be a natural human tendency. Anyway, this is exploited by eristicians. Socrates isn't an eristician because he's not trying to beat anybody, but he does understand the techniques, obviously, because he's using them very well. Socrates continues, Hukun he dunatotera kaiamenon psyche hotan per adike, hekusa adikese, he deponera akusa. Finite. Therefore, the more able and better soul, whenever it commits injustice, will commit injustice willingly, but the worthless soul will commit injustice unwillingly. So it appears. With regard to interchangeable terms, the opposite of amenon, better, is not ponera, worthless. If anything, it would be kakion, worse. And if we have to use worthless, it would have been ponerotera, more worthless. But here we see that Socrates is not bothering with exactitude because this is an eristic debate. Hippias doesn't mind either. He's not objecting. Ukun agathos aner hoten agathen psuchen echon, kakoste hoten kaken? Nay. So, a good man is the one having a good soul, and a bad man the one having a bad soul? Yes. A good man here is good at something. It's the man with ability. And we've been talking about the soul having ability all the way through this second argument. So it means the good soul is the soul with ability as well. The man with ability is the man with a soul with ability. And a bad man is a man without ability with a soul without ability. Agathumen ara andros estin hekonta adikeen kakude akonta eper ho agathos agathen psuchen eche. Ala men echege. So it is of a good man to commit injustice willingly, but of a bad man to commit injustice unwillingly, if indeed the good man has a good soul. Well, yes, indeed, he does have a good soul. Socrates has already logically refuted Hippias's second escape clause, but Hippias reacts just to Socrates' very last comment. So in a way he has avoided the refutation. Socrates ends his sentence with, if indeed a good man has a good soul, and Hippias says, yes, indeed, that is correct. It's very usual in Platonic dialogues for people to react only to the last part of the sentence or the speech or whatever, and to ignore the rest. And now Socrates gives that almost refutation explicitly. Why is it almost a refutation? Because he hasn't said, so you're wrong, Hippias. What you said before isn't correct. Here it is. Ho'ar hekon hamartanon kai aischra kai adika poion o hippia, epertis estin hutos, ukan allos e ho agathos. So the one willingly doing wrong and producing base things and unjust things, Hippias, if indeed this is someone, would not be other than the good man. In other words, a bad man would do wrong and produce shameful and unjust things unwillingly. In other words, he doesn't have a choice. He would like to do just things, good things, but he can't. But the good man is the only one who does bad things willingly. Socrates himself gives Hippias an escape here by suggesting that perhaps there isn't such a person. This leaves Hippias with a problem. If there is such a person, this refutes his claim that people who do wrong willingly are considered worse than people who do wrong unwillingly. On the other hand, if he accepts that there is no such person, Socrates could, in this eristic debate, then say, aha, Hippias, you are not a good man, because there is no good man. Uk echo hoposoisun choreso, O Socrates tauta. There's no way I'll agree with you, Socrates, on this. Hippias, the great eristician, has done it again, a straight denial, in face of all the logic of the argument. All that remains is for Socrates to wrap up the conversation. Ude garigo emoi, O Hippia, al anankaion huto fines thai nunge hemien ectu logu. Nor does it seem to me, Hippias, but it is necessary that it seems thus now to us from the logos. In other words, the argument would require us to think that. Hopermentoi palai elegon, ego peritauta anno caecato planomai, kai udepote tautamoi toke, kai ememen uden thamaston planastai ude alon idioten, ede kai humes planeseste hoi sophoi, tuto ede kai heimin de non me de par humas afficomenoi pausometha tes planes. But what I was saying ages ago, I, about these things, wander up and down, and they never seem to be the same. And it isn't surprising for me to wander, or for any other private individual. But if you too, you sophoi, you experts, wander as well, this is terrible also to us. If, coming to you, we don't cease from wandering. If we recollect, it was after the first escape clause that Socrates described himself as wandering and holding on to an expert, if he ever finds one, to stop wandering. And now he's saying that it would be terrible, using Hippias' favourite word, it would be terrible for ordinary people as well, he says, which means not only the ordinary people, it would be terrible for the sophists themselves. If the sophists wander, because it means that the many will continue to wander, there is no hope. No one will stop them wandering. What does actually stop people wandering? He doesn't say in this dialogue, but it is understanding. Unfounded opinions keep changing, and it's even worse with the sophists because they play with words and they have no interest in finding the truth. Next time we'll draw some conclusions from this analysis, and we'll see why paradigms don't shift so much as everything else.